Old man Robert decided to find himself a feasible job. He became very impoverished in retirement, and he thought not so much about his well-being, but about his faithful friend, a dog named Bruno. An old dog required medical support, and animal feed is not getting cheaper, but Bruno is impressive in size, and he eats more than the owner himself. Robert lived in his old dacha, leaving the apartment to his daughter Pamela, who couldn't arrange her personal life. But the old man didn't complain. He even liked living in the country. No fuss. The forest is nearby. The river, the air is clean. There was no suitable job for old people on the website, and Robert saw an unusual ad. Grandfather for a boy required. He was surprised and decided to call this strange employer. The old man picked up the phone and dialed the number on the ad. The employer immediately answered the call. It was a female voice. "Carolina listens to you." "I'm on the ad. Do I understand you correctly that you want to hire a grandfather?" "That's right." The girl answered and made an appointment for today at 1800 at his house. The old man gave the address, hung up, and began to clean up his house. Then he washed, shaved, put on his new tracksuit, and waited for Carolina. At 1800, a black Jeep drove up to Robert's house, and a heavily built man and a miniature woman got out of it. The old man invited the guests into the house and offered them tea with jam. But the man didn't enter the house, but remained in the car. Turns out it was the driver. The old man and the woman sat down to drink tea with fragrant jam and started a conversation. "I came to you specifically to look at you at home. At first glance, I like everything. You are not a drinker. You have a neat appearance. You have order in your house and garden, which means you have order in your head. Tell me a little about yourself." Robert began. "I don't have much to tell. I'm a simple person. I finished school, went to the army, served in the border troops. There, I fell in love with dogs, and now I can't live without them in my life. After the army, I went to work in a factory. I was a milling cutter and worked at this factory all my life. I got married, I had a daughter, and we lived well. 2 years ago, I buried my wife. My daughter and I were left alone. Daughter Pamela works as an art teacher at school. My pension is small. Me and Bruno misses money, and so I decided to look for a job. Carolina, I have a question for you. Why do you need a grandfather? I think that with your financial situation, you could hire nannies, teachers, or tutors for the boy." "My Alex no longer needs nannies because he is 9 years old. Alex is disabled and uses a wheelchair. My son was born a normal child, but without a father. Everything was fine. My business was developing rapidly. My mother helped me raise my son. The boy went to school well prepared. When he graduated from the first grade, I sent Alex and his grandmother to rest. There was a tragedy. My mother died in front of my child, who had a heart attack. Alex was in shock and stress, and therefore his legs failed. Doctors don't find any pathology. Everyone cites the baby's stress, and we don't know if Alex will be able to walk again or not. Some neurologists say that if he gets any more stress, then perhaps there is a push that can help Alex get back on his feet. But that push could also make things worse. That's all. I believe that a man with life experience is needed next to Alex. Older men, namely such as you. After all, he never had confidential communication with an adult man, and this is very necessary for him. Do you agree, Robert?" "I agree." "In the morning, Alex has classes according to the school curriculum, and by 1400, Alex will be waiting for you. The driver will pick you up and take you home at 2000 hours. Will this time suit you?" "I'm satisfied with this time." "How much would you like for your work?" "Well, I don't know." 200 a day will suit you?" Robert was doubtful. "Of course, but isn't it a lot?" "This is fine." Carolina said goodbye and left. Robert was in such tension that he was even tired of talking with Carolina. He couldn't believe that he would receive such money for working as a grandfather. The next day, Robert was brought to a luxurious house. The housekeeper Tina met him. Then, Alex rode out in a wheelchair to meet the old man and held out his hand to him, smiling. The old man shook the child's hand. Thus, Alex met a grandfather. Robert and the boy Alex talked as if they had known each other for a long time. The boy was interested in everything: how the young soldier Robert served in the army and detained border violators, as well as stories about service and non-service dogs. Time flew by unnoticed. The boy was interested in everything, and the old man was interested in Alex because he didn't have his own grandchildren. And at this age, old people need to communicate with children. Children and old people are always on the same wavelength and understand each other very well. Mom Carolina also noticed how high her son is in spending time with his grandfather. 3 months have passed. The longer he worked as a grandfather, the more he got used to Alex, and Alex responded the same way to the old man. Robert accompanied Alex everywhere, to the pool where the boy had individual lessons, to rehabilitation and for walks. They didn't bother each other, and when Robert had days off, Alex called him and they talked. Once, on a day off, grandfather invited Alex to visit him at the dacha so that he could play with the dog and be in the fresh air. Mom brought Alex. The housekeeper Tina came with them. Tina started cleaning the old man's house. He persisted, but she washed with a smile and said, "There were no woman's hands here for a long time, Robert, so let me put things in order for you, and you entertain the guests, drink tea, and introduce Alex to Bruno." Bruno was an old dog, but he enjoyed playing with the boy. Alex also had limited opportunities, so they found each other. The day went off great. Alex really liked visiting, and he asked his mother to let him stay overnight. Mom gladly allowed, as she saw that Alex was well with the grandfather. Tina also stayed behind to help the old man with the baby. The next day in the evening, Mother Carolina took them by car. Since then, Alex spends almost every weekend with Robert. Tina stayed with him very rarely because the main work doesn't tolerate her absence. The male union of the old man and the boy was so strong that the two of them didn't get bored, and Bruno also didn't let them get bored. One evening at the weekend, Grandfather Robert became ill, as he was already elderly. "Alex, I feel bad. I must have had high blood pressure. I'll go take my medicine, and you feed Bruno. I'll rest a bit, and we'll have dinner with you." Alex fed Bruno. When he drove into the old man's room, he saw that Robert was lying. His eyes were closed, one arm was hanging down to the floor, and it seemed to the boy that the old man was not breathing. Alex screamed, "Grandpa Robert, don't die!" He abruptly jumped up from his chair, took a few steps forward towards his grandfather, and fell to his knees by the bed. Robert jumped like crazy. The old man got scared. "Alex, what happened?" The boy cried and laughed. "Grandpa, I'm scared. I thought you were dead." "Alex, probably the medicine worked like that, and I dozed off. And you yourself came to me?" "I don't know, maybe. I don't remember. I was very scared." "Let me lift you up, and we'll try to take a few steps. Alex, don't be afraid. I'll hold you." The old man picked up the boy and led him carefully. Alex took a few steps, smiled, and looked at his grandfather. "Grandpa Robert, I'm going myself." "I'm a little tired. Can I sit for a while?" "But not in this wheelchair. And then we walk a little more." On Sunday evening, when Carolina came to pick up her son, she opened the gate and saw that the wheelchair was empty and standing aside, and along the path leading to the house, Alex, supported by Grandpa Robert, accompanied by Bruno, carefully walks, and they lead their endless conversations. Robert encouraged the boy. "Alex, you will soon be running like all the guys. Bruno and I are old and can't keep up with you." "I'll run slowly. You and Bruno are my best friends, and why should I run away from you?" Carolina looked after this trinity and wept with happiness. Over time, Alex fully got on his feet and completely forgot about his wheelchair, and Grandfather Robert became a close person for him. That's how it happens in life. We can find our happiness thanks to strangers.